Trying this again. All right. Trying this again. What's up, man? Doing a video. All right, we are live and direct. Cool. All right, guys. So ask me any question you want. We're going to be talking about the vagus nerve, choline, sympathetic, parasympathetic. Let me know if you can hear me now in the comments. And if you're watching the replay, ask me questions. I can still see them and still reply to them. So awesome, Shreya. Awesome, very cool. Good. So yeah, we're here in Sedona, chilling, hanging out. Beautiful day outside. Wanted to come on here and answer any questions that you might have related to the vagus nerve. So yeah, shoot, go ahead. Anyway, like I was saying before, one of the main questions I often see is my vagus nerve actually overstimulated? And here's how you'll know if your vagus nerve is overstimulated. Dizziness, a lot of salivation, a lot of crying, uh, basically a sense, like potentially a little sensitive is really extreme gastric processes. So a lot of emptying, like you eat food and it rolls through you really fast. That is a sign of like vagal nerve overactivation, rather than well, it depends. It really depends. It's very particular. Catherine, awesome. Good to see you. Good to see you. From Ireland, all the better. You can tell I got a little bit of Irish in me too. A little beard here. Um, so good to see you. Anyway, so yeah, if the vagus nerve is overstimulated is a good question. Oftentimes people misunderstand it. It's 80% of the time your vagus nerve is actually understimulated. And it's usually that your sympathetic fight or flight state is way overactive. So that's another thing that should be really investigated. Now, it's really sensitive. It's really particular. For instance, gut dysfunction is a really interesting place to look because your sympathetic nervous system and your parasympathetic nervous system both innervate your intestines and your stomach and your colon. So there are some ways to see if you have like either diarrhea or constipation to see what is happening with the vagus nerve. And there's lots of counteracting examples. So it's not just one thing where you can say it's not simple like, well, if you have diarrhea, then you have it's sympathetic, and you constipated, it's parasympathetic. It's not always so clear cut. You have to look at other places as well. So you have to look at like upper body function, mental function, how your hearing is. You have to look at quite a few other different areas that are connected to the vagus nerve to understand how it's responding. Another reason why I love doing the breathing in this group is that it allows you to do a what's called a Valsalva squeeze. Okay, so when you take a breath in and you squeeze down with your diaphragm and you get dizzy, you're activating your parasympathetic system. So that's a good test to see if your parasympathetic system is working or not. If you squeeze and you feel nothing, that's a sign that your parasympathetic system is not working. Okay? So anyway, that's a really common way to do it. That's why you should be breathing. A lot of people just come in here and ask me, well, not a lot. Some people, which is kind of funny, is they come in and they say, will the breathing cure me? And it's like, I don't know. Like, I can't just answer that question. So here we go. Shreya has our hyperthyroid tinnitus issues related to it. Yeah, so in the vagus nerve, there are some lines that run into your ear, to your outer ear and your inner ear, your middle ear. And they actually do innervate some parts of your ability to hear things. Also, the ear is part of a cholinergic system. So the ear relates to the same processes that the vagus nerve works on. So when you have a nerve here and then a synapse, so a nerve connecting to another nerve it's called the synaptic junction. And one nerve releases acetylcholine, and that nerve hits chemically the other nerve and then activates it electrically. So hearing is part of the cholinergic system as well. So it's it's a shared system in terms of the neurotransmitters. So if you can have really low, if you have really low levels of acetylcholine, you can actually develop issues like tinnitus. So that's actually a sign that you have an impaired vagus nerve as well. I also know that like autism is a really common thing with with issues with the vagus nerve. Now, hyperthyroid. So your vagus nerve runs through the thyroid twice. Actually, did you know that? So your vagus nerve runs down your neck, runs right under your thyroid gland, which is right about here, and then the vagus nerve runs all the way down on both sides, down to your heart, and then it splits into two paths, both ways. So let's just focus on the right. Well, actually, left vagus nerve. Left vagus nerve is the primary vagus nerve to focus on. So the vagus nerve runs down here, runs under the thyroid on the outside, runs down to your heart, and actually goes back over your aortic arch all the way back up to your throat. So it controls your larynx and your ability to swallow. So the vagus nerve runs through your thyroid 4 times, twice down here as it goes down and then up, and then also down and up. So the vagus nerve and the thyroid are very interconnected. Now, the vagus nerve releases acetylcholine, and acetylcholine is a paracrine neurotransmitter. So a paracrine neurotransmitter is what tells a gland to squeeze and release whatever hormone is inside of it. It's signaled, so you have acetylcholine coming in, being released by the vagus nerve to the gland like the thyroid or the adrenal glands or the kidneys or the testes or the ovaries. It's all over. So it releases paracrine hormone or a paracrine signaling neurotransmitter to the thyroid to then release the thyroid T3, T4 through your whole body. So yes, the vagus nerve, if it's not working, can actually cause really bad hypothyroidism or hyperthyroidism as well. Now, you often see with emotional issues that people have a really overactive and underactive vagus nerve. Now, this may seem like a wild stretch, but you need to understand the difference between narcissistic personality and codependent personality. A codependent personality is much more likely to develop vagal nerve issues than a narcissist. It's very strange, but a codependent is somebody who has to put themselves into a fake state. They have to peak themselves into a state of empathy to be able to feel somebody, and you feel empathy through the process of activating your vagus nerve. So a codependent person who maybe grew up in a troubled household would, as a child, would have to be like, yeah, I love you, mommy. Oh yeah, we're gonna be okay, or whatever. And so there's all kinds of neurological, emotional, developmental strategies that impacted how the vagus nerve works. So if you have a hyperthyroid, you may be more of a codependent person. That's my guess. I'm not saying that that's for you, but that would be a pretty rational connection in my mind from what I've seen. So yeah, your thyroid is dependent upon paracrine signaling from your vagus nerve. So if your vagus nerve is spiking in activity because you're trying to cope, a lot of what we're talking about is dysregulation of the vagus nerve. So you might have a really inactive vagus nerve, but then you get a spike and it goes boop, and then it crashes. And that's not good. So when people ask me, is my vagus nerve overactive? All they're asking is, when I spike, is my vagus nerve overactive? And the answer is yes. But generally speaking, for 95% of the day, it's actually probably completely off. But you're just focusing on these spike things that match some of the symptoms that you've read on the internet. So anyway, that's one thing. Does the vagus nerve affect balance? I've seen that fixing the vagus nerve does help with balance. There's a tool from Canada. So if you have like mal de Barque syndrome or vertigo, I've had clients that have actually had improvements from vagal nerve stimulation through activating the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve does, again, like with the tinnitus answer, go through your middle ear and actually control some of the sensations of balance. And also there's a vestibular ocular system. So I have another practice here in this group from Stanley Rosenberg's book called The Healing Power, or Unlocking the Healing Power of the Vagus Nerve. Great book to check out. I'm gonna post the link to the link to the book. So I'm gonna go accelerate.co/top products, which includes some supplements, but it's got a book section, and so you should check out the book section. Read Stanley Rosenberg's Unlocking the Healing Power of the Vagus Nerve. Now, in that book, he recommends a practice called the basic exercise. And now this question is really, yeah, thank you, Shreya, for the amazing analysis. Yes, you're welcome. Does the vagus nerve affect balance? Yes. So the vestibular ocular system is what's impacted when you do the basic exercise, which is from that book. But if you look at the announcements in this group for the links at the very top of this group, you'll find some exercises. Now, I think video number 2, there's video number 1 is diaphragmatic breath, which you should all be doing every day. And then number 2 is the basic exercise where you interlock your fingers like this, you put them behind your head, and then you take a breath in, and then you turn your eyes to the right and you hold for 60 seconds, and your goal is to trigger a yawn or a sigh, okay? Like that. When you do that, then you switch to the left side. Like that. Now what that's going to do is it's going to relax your sternocleidomastoid and your trapezius muscles in your back. So you can do a test beforehand. Squeeze your trap muscles right here. So I'm just like squeezing, right? Squeezing just like this. I got all that muscle right between my fingers. Squeeze it on both sides. You might find that one side is stronger than the other. Now, how is it? Answer this question. Think about this really carefully, guys. When I look at the camera right here, but then if I turn my head, my eyes instinctually know how to keep my eyes on the location that I'm looking at, okay? This is why when you go to a doctor's office, they say, follow the light, right? They move the light like this. They're actually doing a test of your vestibular ocular system, which in some part is related to the vagus nerve. It's not just the vagus nerve, but the vagus nerve is about 20% of that. So if you have vagus nerve dysfunction, it might be a part of that. Anyway, without confusing it too much, I would recommend you do the basic exercise and see what happens with your balance. Alice, my doctor suggests I need to address my vagus nerve. I have, IBS, really bad reflux, and LPR. Really hoping I can heal. Also, I'm seeing an osteopath and an acupuncture. So yeah, Alice. So I think it's absolutely correct to look into the vagus nerve with specifically with what you're dealing with. So IBS, dysfunction of the whole gastrointestinal tract. Look up what the mesenteric vagal system is. Mesenteric, MESENTERIC, mesenteric. And that is a ganglion, that's a big cluster of the vagus nerve that controls all of the function of your intestines and your colon as well. The colon is part of the sacral branch, but it's still part of the parasympathetic system. So it's very much related to this whole field we're dealing with. So a couple things. First place you should be looking is, are you stimulating your vagus nerve actively? Everybody can do a practice where they stimulate their vagus nerve every day. I highly recommend it. If you're not doing it already, you should be. You really should be. Those kinds of practices would be gargling, gagging yourself with the end of your toothbrush. I know some people are like, oh, that's so dangerous. I'm not talking to a bunch of kids, right? You're all adults, you can handle it. Or put your finger back in your throat. What that does is it induces the gag reflex, which heavily activates the vagus nerve. I've seen people come back from a lot of illness from gagging. They say that the gagging was one of the most powerful practices that they had in terms of vagus nerve stimulation. So it's up to you. Use at your own risk. Don't hurt yourself, please. The other one would be taking an ice pack and putting it on your face and then holding your breath. So taking a deep breath in and then putting an ice pack on your face and then just seeing how long you can hold your breath. That will activate what's called the diving response. So when you go underwater, your body starts to conserve energy by putting you into a parasympathetic state by activating your vagus nerve. So diving response. There's a whole list of exercises we have all throughout this group that you can do. So anyway, yes, I think it's good. The second place you need to look is your neck. Your neck, if it's out of whack, can be a really big issue. I personally use a tool called the iron neck. And what it does is it strengthens my neck muscles and all the support for my whole spine. Every cervical spine has muscles that control if it goes in or out of place. So a lot of people have really weak necks. And that actually ends up becoming a problem when they go to the chiropractor, because the chiropractor just adjusts you. They're not strengthening anything. They're actually making it so that you're weaker over time, too. They're just supporting a very weak system. I look at it like, why don't we just do exercises to strengthen your body? Like, it's like, oh, I tried to pick up this jug of water and it hurt my arm. And it's like, well, let's just adjust the arm and don't worry about it. Just try not to pick up a jug of water. But it's like, this is the case of, I tried moving my neck and my neck pinched. That's not right. You shouldn't be going to the chiropractor every week. There's something seriously wrong with that picture. Even an osteopath is going to do the same thing. So you need to be focusing on neck strengthening rather than just adjustments. Okay, so I use an iron neck. You can check that out. We have a resource for that. I'll post that later today. But anyway, neck strengthening is good. Physical therapists are better than osteopaths, better than chiropractors, but they're really expensive. So you can do things at home. Then the other thing would be your diet. Diet's really good. So diet, obviously, if you have IBS, is something to look at. And then the fourth one would actually be trauma. So looking at trauma and emotions and mindset. Those things are often under accounted for. And if you're just seeing an osteopath, acupuncturist, and a doctor, they're never going to cover those things for you. So you have to be proactive, and you have to look at things like somatic therapy, trauma release, emotion code, DNRS. There's a lot of things that are out there. So, and if you need help with this kind of stuff, you guys can absolutely reach out to me. We do offer like a free 10-minute call, 15-minute call for anybody who's like, I want to see, like, I want to know more about, for me particular. So I can actually offer customized answers. Thank you. Narina, can VNS stimulator fix patulous eustachian tube disorder that is constantly open eustachian tube? I've heard that there's a connection to the vagus nerve. That is, so in the back of your throat, you have a soft palate which rises and falls. Then you have the uvula. So Narina, one thing you can do is go get your, I don't think I have my phone right next to me, but you can go get your phone and then turn on the camera and the flashlight. Go into a bathroom with a mirror and look into the back of your throat and go, ah, 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 and you'll see your uvula rising up and then down. Ah, ah, ah. And if you have a vagus nerve issue on one of the sides, because I'm sure that your eustachian tube disorder is probably on one side or the other, most likely it's rare that it happens to both sides. This will help you analyze which side is the root issue. And then you can look at things like a VNS stimulator for one side or the other to try and repair some of that. But yeah, let's talk. I definitely think I could help you with that. We deal with a lot of stimulator devices. Thanks. Kata, vagus nerve can create angioedema. I think you're talking about the heart. I don't think so. I've never seen that connection before, that it can create angioedema. That's typically, the vagus nerve typically doesn't create issues proactively in the body. I think that the lack of the vagus nerve can cause a lot of issues. So that's really what I would have you look at. So if you have damage to tissue, likely activating the vagus nerve is going to help repair some of the damaged tissue. If you're in a state of fight or flight and have a lot of adrenaline, adrenaline prevents repair of your body. So you don't want to be in that kind of situation, okay? Sophia, can the Sensate device help? Yeah, I think so. The Sensate device is what it does is it's about this big, and it's like a necklace. It's a black kind of, it looks like a stone, like a smoothed pebble from the river. And what it does is it releases very deep, low rumbling vibrations right into your chest, and that can actually help to activate some of the vagal nerve fibers in your chest. So it can really calm people down. It's a lot like if you take a deep breath. I think there's something with the connection with the mother, even like the heart chakra. There's probably a lot more to it than what they are saying on the website. But I've seen a lot of people get really good results with it. So yeah, the Sensate device, I got nothing against it. And I think there's something really nice about, like, deep rumbling vibrations. How I get my deep rumbling vibrations is by breathing and then also going to concerts and listening to music really loudly. So if you go right up to the speaker, I know that effect where it's like a boo, like that, and it rumbles your whole body. So if you can go for like a whole body experience, that's like really primo. Um, Sel, you're welcome. What are the few things we can do to start supporting our vagus nerve instead of getting overwhelmed? Yeah, Summer, I definitely want to help people not feel overwhelmed when they jump into this field for the first time. Best thing to do, the thing that's going to remove overwhelm for you is going to be the breathing exercise that we have. That's the number one video on this group. So the number one video here that you should start with is breathing. Breathing, that's it. You like a lot of people say, okay, when people say that you need to do something, be careful there because they're going to say, oh, you need to do this and you need to do this and you need to do this. And that's going to get you very overwhelmed really fast. So all I recommend, why I don't inundate people with a whole bunch of stuff, here's what you need to do and buy and all this kind of stuff. The core things you should do are likely get choline. Most people are deficient in choline. Choline is the precursor to the neurotransmitter acetylcholine, and if you're deficient in acetylcholine, your vagus nerve cannot work. Full stop. And if your vagus nerve doesn't work, you're in really bad shape. Promise. Like you need your vagus nerve to work. There's no situation where you're like, yeah, I don't really need a vagus nerve or anything like that, so you need it. So choline is a great place to start. Choline is affordable. You can take it. There's no you don't have to be careful about dosages. Your body knows exactly what to do with it. It's safe. It's easy. No side effects. I would recommend everybody get choline as a supplement if you aren't already taking it. That's one thing. The second one would be breathing. Breathing is really important. I just did some of my breathing this morning. So I did the and then I do a breath in, and then I hold and I squeeze. And you push pressure so you almost feel like a dizzy feeling, but at first it might feel a little bit uncomfortable, but you will totally get used to it really, really fast. So don't let the first time you do it be like a turnoff. It's really important, I promise you. I mean, now we're at 12,000 people in this group. It's 12,000 people who are doing this breathing exercise. That video is like one of the most watched videos of all time. So that's a very common exercise you should be doing. Other things you can be doing are really looking at your neck. So analyzing your neck, be honest with yourself. When you turn your neck, does it click? Does it crunch? Do you have anything wrong with it? Do you feel like you have bad posture? Those are questions you need to address really very seriously. So if your neck has issues, that's an area that could be causing some of your symptoms. And I don't know what your symptoms are, but that's always a place I would look at. But yeah, start with the choline and the breathing and just make that be it, okay? And then add small things. You don't want to get in the situation where you have like a 3-hour morning practice that's just like, oh my God, I can't live my life because I'm doing so many things to stimulate my vagus nerve or feel good. So there's a lot of shortcuts, and so breathing and choline are like 2 good ways. Another one would be vagus nerve stimulation. That's a shortcut. If you want to actually get help with that, I'm going to put the link down here, veguscure.com. Just a domain that I got. Okay, this is mine. And what this does is, what the website does that I just posted, veguscure.com, has a free membership. Free for anybody to sign up. All the information on getting yourself a vagus nerve stimulator is all there. I definitely encourage you to do that if you need some help, like some more serious help. It also covers things like mindset, trauma release, emotions, these kinds of things. So it's all really very comprehensive. Completely free. I don't charge for it. You just make an account, log in, and all the videos are there showing you everything you need to do. So if you have any questions about that, it's all really probably been answered. Got it. Okay. So thanks, Summer. So Melanie, I have yet to experience the yawn. Yeah, so that's a sign that your vestibular ocular system is not aligned very well. So Could mean a couple things, right? And I don't know why that's not happening for you, but it is a sign that there's something that's not working. So you should have a yawn. You should have a yawn, and so you should continue to do it until you get the yawn, and then use it as a. It's very relaxing, actually. It's not just a test; it's also a practice to do. It takes like 3 minutes. All of 3 minutes, you just go this. You do this to take pressure off of the neck and the trapezius. You can do it laying down as well, and just hold your eyes there as much as you can, and you can try to induce the yawn. Just think of yawning when you do it. See if you can actively do it. We're not doing a scientific study to see if like I can just do this and try to think of a purple elephant. It's like the purpose of yawning is to actually heal. So you want to actually allow yourself to yawn. You might even be able to induce a yawn by going just by making the sound. I know you've yawned, so give it a try, Melanie, and I think you'll get there. Kara, I have the book and have been doing the exercises for the past 6 months. It has helped with dizziness and heart palpitations. Fantastic! I love that. I love hearing success stories. Always happy to hear that. What do you do about an overstimulated vagus nerve? Yeah, so that's one question I was getting to earlier, which is that if you think you have an overstimulated vagus nerve, you have to be careful to make sure that it is an overstimulated vagus nerve. So most of the time, when people come to me and we do these like free 10-minute calls for people so they can really discover about it. We can create a game plan. So I can really specifically answer that better, Cassie. I would definitely recommend that you do schedule a 10-minute call with me. A game plan call. It's free. You just go over it. I'll actually be able to address this with you and help you figure it out once and for all, because I know what questions to ask too. So I don't know if it's overstimulated or understimulated. 80 to 90% of the time, it's actually understimulated. So that's one thing I would say. And what do you do about these things? You still do vagus nerve stimulation. Your vagus nerve is not likely to be constantly overstimulated. As I was saying, most people have a very understimulated vagus nerve, and then it spikes in activity, and then it drops quickly, and then it stays understimulated. And then all they do is they focus on this one little blip where it goes bloop, and then they say, "Oh, I think my vagus nerve is overstimulated. I need to do something that counteracts it." Your vagus nerve is not the kind of system that is a default. Your sympathetic is a default system. So it's not necessarily about dealing with an overstimulated vagus nerve. It's about averaging out your vagus nerve so that it has more activity, doesn't spike, and it's not low activity. So it's more of that kind of thing, and still the same things would apply. Breathing, choline. Your body uses choline really, really fast. So it's like, just not eating for a day will completely... not eating for a few days will deprive your body of choline, and that's not healthy. You'll probably die from not eating because of the lack of choline, because your body will just fail. People who are consistently undernourished on choline will develop fatty liver disease within 30 days. That's how much your body needs choline. So it's very unlikely that you have an constantly overstimulated vagus nerve. You have a vagus nerve that's out of regulation and it's completely off and then goes like that. So that's what I believe is happening. Hi, what book? I think it's Unleashing the Healing Power of the Vagus Nerve. Unleashing the Healing Power of the Vagus Nerve. What do you recommend, Melanie? What do you recommend to share in a yoga class for stimulating the vagus nerve? Yeah, great question. So what I would recommend is sitting on the wall. So putting your butt up against the wall and having your legs go up the wall. So you can kind of release and relax your back. This practice of doing a wall sit where you're laying down, your head and back are on the ground, on the floor, but your legs are actually up against the wall so that you're doing this. Now, I've seen that part of what that does is it helps take off pressure on the psoas muscle. It moves a lot of blood pressure back into your body, and that stimulates your vagus nerve from that. So that's a yoga-like exercise, or even just leg lifts. Holding your legs up in the air for 30 seconds is a good way to do it, or doing some leg lift exercises. That's a good practice in yoga. Breathing, also you can do in yoga. I would say humming. So when people do the ha, ha, like that, that humming, that vibration of the throat is part of, uh, is actually stimulating the vagus nerve because when you speak, you're speaking through your vagus nerve. That's what it is. So it's not that the vibrations stimulate, like emanate out and vibrate your vagus nerve, which they kind of do, but speaking, you speak through your vagus nerve, actually. So humming is a really good way to do it. Alice, you're welcome. Kara, yeah, accessing the healing power of the vagus nerve. It's the one that Sterling recommended. Correct. Yes. Sophia, how can I stimulate my vagus nerve to help me sleep and also reduce muscle tension in my legs and abdomen? Great question. So there is one tool that I really like. It's called the Pso-rite, Psorite, and what it does is it's like two horns, two rounded horns that you put into your abdomen that helps to relax your psoas muscle. So your psoas muscle is a really long muscular chain that gets really tight, and it can get tight because of emotional trauma, tension, stress. And so the Pso-rite goes right into it, and it can really help to relax it. So you might consider using that before bed or something like that. Um, yeah, so that's what I would say about that. In terms of stimulating your vagus nerve to help you sleep, I would do ice water dive response exercise before bed. So what you do is you get a big basin of water, a big bowl, could be one of those big mixing bowls made out of aluminum or stainless steel. So a big stainless steel bowl. Fill it up with water and then add a bunch of ice. So like 2 trays of ice cubes into it. Start with cold water ideally. You want to get this as cold as possible. Then standing over it or sitting over it is you want to take a deep breath and then plunge your face into the water. And what that'll do is it'll activate the diving response, which will put you into more of a parasympathetic state and it will calm you down. So it can really be good to do at the end of the day. You can also do it in the morning and it'll kickstart your day. So if you have access to ice and cold water, I would definitely encourage you to try that. Um, and let's see. Yeah, so Pso-rite and dive response. I would do that. Shreya, what about an acupuncture mat to lie on every day? Would that help to some extent along with exercises? Any place to refer what you have covered today to keep notes? Well, the video is going to be recorded and saved, so you can always come back and rewatch whatever you want. You're here at about the 32-minute mark. Acupuncture mat to lie on every day. I've tried acupuncture mats for my back, for my feet. I think they help with some pain, but I don't believe that they're stimulating the vagus nerve. They're actually more likely overstimulating the sympathetic system because of pain. So it's just numbing you to pain essentially, which can be good, but it can also not be good. I've read this book called When the Body Says No by Gabor Mate. When the Body Says No. It's a book written in like 2003 or something like that. And it's a really good book. Now, oftentimes what they show is that people who have numbed their pain due to emotional trauma is that they are likely to develop autoimmune issues, which is an issue of the vagus nerve, a parasympathetic shutdown. So you have to be really careful with like pain-related exercises because your body will overcome the pain really fast, and then you'll need more and more of it. So I'm not a big fan. I've tried the acupuncture mat. I don't think that it's really the end all be all of anything. I think that there's a lot better things. I would recommend vagus nerve stimulation. There's lots of technology to use, depending on what the issue is. Donna, central sleep apnea. Can anything help? Yeah, so I believe that the vagus nerve stimulation can help. So some of these practices can help with sleep apnea. So when you have sleep apnea, part of your vocal folds and the back of your throat and your soft palate and the levator patini is like holding itself shut, and it stops you from breathing. That is controlled. The muscles in there are controlled by the vagus nerve. So when you go ha ha, ha, make an and you look at your throat. Donna, I would recommend you this. Take a phone with a flashlight, turn the camera on, turn it into your mouth, and look at it through the mirror in the bathroom. So you're standing there with a camera up to your mouth, going ah ah with your tongue down and looking at your. You could use a tongue depressor or something, but you want to look at your uvula, the thing that hangs in the very back of your throat. See if it rises up equally on both sides or not at all. Vagus nerve exercises can probably help sleep apnea, actually, because those are the muscles that are controlled that are not engaging properly. So that's an area I definitely have you look at. What about supplements, Courtney? What about supplements? I'm very low on vitamin D. Osteopath put me on a prescription D3 and K2. K2 is good. D3 is good. Says to also take magnesium, pro and prebiotics, I think is what you're meaning. Fish oil and CoQ10 seems like so much. Honestly, that's not that much. That's not that much in terms of supplements. I think you should be on those things. I have no issues with any of those. Those are all really good. Yeah, sorry, I wish I could help more, but yeah, I think those supplements are actually good. You should continue taking those. Courtney, who do you see for the neck? Yeah, NUCCA is good. Atlas orthogonal is also good. Let's see, a physical therapist who does neck strengthening is also really good. You want to be strengthening your neck. It's not just about like it's not just about removing pain, it's about preventing pain in the future. Because here's the thing, you could talk about investments. You know, people invest a lot in like insurance, for instance. So you get insurance because something might happen in the future and you want to prevent it being more catastrophic financially than what you can probably handle in the future. So if you get in a car accident, you want to have insurance. If your home burns down, you want insurance. If somebody in your family member is seriously injured and they have to go to the hospital, you have insurance for that. Because you've spent a lot of money on yourself and you want to make sure that it doesn't wipe you out completely. Now, on a physical level, you have to think that your neck, if your neck gets hurt, it can seriously mess up your life. And there's no amount of health insurance or therapy or chiropractic care that will be able to fix some kinds of neck injuries quickly. Okay? There's no piece of paper that can ensure your neck not getting hurt. Okay? Now, how common is it? How common could it be that you're walking around your house and there's a little patch of water and you slip and you fall? You know what? Most injuries that are really catastrophic are the ones where the neck gets twisted too much and it pulls. You have all your crucial nerves going through for your entire body going through your neck. Okay? So if you're just like, oh yeah, it's all good. I'm spending like $5,000 a year on a chiropractor. I'm good. My neck feels good. It's all good. But it's not good because the muscles in your neck, if they're weak, do not protect you at all. It allows your head, which is about 8 to 12 pounds of rotational force, to completely crink your neck. You can do lots of damage. The only insurance policy that you can get for protecting your neck, which is where your vagus nerve runs, is by strengthening your neck. So go to somebody that will actually have you do exercises that will strengthen your neck. And that's the main thing that you need to be doing. Neck strengthening, not chiropractic, not osteopathic, not acupuncture. Those things are good for relieving pain, but strengthening your neck is like getting a really good insurance policy. They actually have NASCAR drivers now doing neck strengthening because of the rotational forces. If their car starts to spin out with the helmet on, can snap their neck. And the only thing that can protect them is a big, strong, robust neck. And each and every one of you can do it. At any age, you can all strengthen your neck. So I definitely encourage you to do that. That's what I mean by strengthening the neck. So you have to check with the NUCCA people. Are they going to strengthen your neck? That's what you need to really be sure and make sure that they're doing, not just making you feel good. Shreya asks, what's the first thing mentioned? Coing, sorry, have tinnitus. Okay, I got you. Coing? I don't understand coing. Breathing, I understand. Coing, I'm sorry, I just don't understand what coing is. You gotta spell check before you give a comment. Sophia, my neck cracked every time I move. 2 months ago, an osteopath cracked my neck, and I woke up in total pain and electricity in my body. It took me weeks to heal. Could he had touched my vagus nerve? Yeah, I just want to make a note for everybody watching. She went to an osteopath that cracked her neck, and she woke up in complete pain with electricity shooting through her body. Yeah, you likely, I don't really recommend osteopathic cracking of the neck. Anything else in your body, probably good. Do not crack your neck. Not a good idea. Like, not a good idea. Just saying. Um, so your neck cracks every time I move. Yeah. You would benefit, Sophia, from neck strengthening. If you want to get some support on this, reach out to me. I will help you with this. This is something that I work with people a lot with cervical cranial instability, Ehlers-Danlos. We have a lot of ways to help people with neck strengthening in particular, and we've been able to help them remove the cracking, crunching, grinding, and it comes through strengthening of your neck, which is surprising, but you actually do want to actively strengthen your neck. I'm really sorry about that. It sounds like they probably did quite a lot of things. I don't know if it's vagus nerve because you the electricity in your body wouldn't it doesn't it's most likely not coming from your vagus nerve, but it could be. I would have to know more to be able to answer that question specifically to see if they did something to your vagus nerve. But I would not be surprised if they tweaked something and you do have some like pretty high levels of inflammation in your neck, which would affect the vagus nerve. So let's definitely talk. Cassie would love to. Awesome. Okay, Boswellia airy oil is good for neck pains. For me, it's great. Yeah, I think that neck pain medication is good. Sometimes if if I have a little sore neck, I'll put some like Tiger Balm on my neck. So, Lacey, does healing vagus nerve help with Lyme mold toxicity? Yes, it does. It definitely does. Yeah. Um, a lot of the times, well, this is a whole. I mean, there's so much about Lyme and mold. So I made this post last week about something called Eagle syndrome. And a woman has what's called a styloid process. We all have a styloid process, which is a bone that's like a tooth coming out of the back of your skull. And most of the time it's really short, but in some cases due to trauma in the childhood, that can actually grow really long and it can grow all the way down into your neck. And so this woman has most likely Eagle syndrome, which is her styloid process is going really long and it's literally sticking into the nerve, into the vagus nerve, and pinching the jugular. So when she moves her neck, she almost passes out. Now, she was diagnosed with Lyme and mold toxicity. She was diagnosed with everything. Um, the doctors are like, yeah, you have Lyme. No, maybe she did or whatever, but the styloid process sticking into her vagus nerve probably did a lot more of that damage than the Lyme did. That's my thinking on it. And so we're looking at getting her surgery. She's a client of mine, and so we're looking at doing something to actually shorten that. And a lot of these symptoms can just completely relieve suddenly by removing an actual bone that's sticking into your nerves. So, but anyway, does stimulating the vagus nerve help? Yeah, but if it's hardcore mold, it's not a one size fits all kind of thing. Lyme does definitely, the people that I've seen that have mold do have to do quite a lot of work to get better. But chemical sensitivity removes chemical sensitivity like crazy. A lot of the times what it's doing is it's rewiring your brain to not be so sensitive to chemicals, right? So look into like DNRS, these kinds of things where people are like highly sensitive to the environment. Because we all smell smells. We all smell chemicals. There's chemicals coming off of probably everything everywhere we are, right? Everything is just like gassing chemicals. So some people have reactions, some people don't. So it has to do with kind of the brain and the body's reaction to that stuff. So anyway, I hope that helps. Sorry about the Lyme. Courtney, can the vagus nerve cause problems down the entire side of your body? Well, the vagus nerve does run on one side and the other side. So you can have single side kinds of issues. Now, this isn't necessarily a super highly scientific answer I'm going to give you, but I do believe that there are hemispheres of your brain that are related to trauma and some of these like manifestations of pain. So you might want to look into a little bit about like what does it mean when the left side is painful or the left side is numb, or if the right side is painful or numb, and look into what some of the components there are as well as you're doing some of your work. So you're not just focusing too much on the material, but you're also focusing a little bit more on the mental side as well. Because I do find that there are some interesting insights you can get when you involve more than just the physical and not just the mental spiritual. They're both true, right? So they're both here. They balance yin and yang, right? So I would look into that. But I don't know what kind of problems you're talking about, so I can't really say. Um, Melanie, why relax the psoas? The psoas is like a big battery that pretty much like stores traumatic energy, and it tightens and tightens and tightens and tightens, and you have to release that energy through like traumatic release or tremoring response, shaking response. So you can do that by, there's a specific process. David Balsetti, you can look him up. TRE, all caps. It's a trauma release exercise. You can look him up and see what he does in terms of shaking response. That can be really helpful for also shaking out the vagus nerve, or not the vagus nerve, but the psoas muscle. Mary, I thought I printed this once before, but it disappeared before I hit go. I have both internal and external tremors, both in my lower back, stomach area, and in my hands. I had thought of autonomic disorders and essential tremors, but how does this tie in with the vagus nerve? Um, you know, in some cases, if it's in your hands, okay, so lower back, stomach, those could somewhat be related to the autonomic system. It depends where they are. Is the tremoring happening in your abdominal muscles, or are they happening? Do you feel like they're happening in your actual intestinal tract, like in your actual stomach, like inside of the organs? You have to kind of know that. But in your hands, essential tremors in your hands, that's usually related to dopamine, and I don't believe that like direct stimulation of the vagus nerve helps with tremoring in the hands. I think that's a different issue. Um, so I won't say more about that. Alejandra, if I cannot breathe until the end, like more deep, could be a vagus nerve issue. Let's see, cannot breathe until the end, like in the breathing video. It might be related to the phrenic nerve. It might just mean that you need practice. If you're getting really dizzy, that could be a vagus nerve issue, definitely. So there could be some indications that there's a vagus nerve issue, but I'm not sure. You need to be a little bit more clear. I'm not sure, breathe until the end of what? Or like if you can't breathe all the way in, then that could be a phrenic nerve issue. So, and it also might mean that you are stuck in sympathetic and you're not able to go into a parasympathetic state. You need to do the breathing exercise that we have in this group to better prepare you for that. And your muscles can get weak too. If you don't breathe, like if you don't use a muscle, the muscle gets weak and deteriorates. It's called atrophy. Have you ever seen somebody in a wheelchair? Have you ever seen somebody that's quadriplegic? Have you ever seen their legs? Have you ever seen a military veteran who's in a wheelchair who can't use their legs, and then they take the blanket off their legs? Their legs are tiny, skinny, like twigs. That's what happens to any muscle if you don't use it. So if you're like, I can't breathe very well, it's like, well, how often have you done any heavy breathing? And if you haven't done any heavy breathing, then the clear sign is that the muscles just may not be there. So how do you grow muscles? You exercise them. And so it's just very clear cut. If you have weak muscles, you exercise the muscles. They'll get bigger. Make sure you feed yourself protein, right? So if you have muscle issues, you need the right amount of protein to build muscle mass. It's all guys, this is all very simple stuff. It's all very simple. If there's a weak part of your body, oftentimes people look for a quick shortcut. Sometimes it's like, sometimes you just need to actually do the exercises. So I would do the breathing. Kata, magnets can help for vagus nerve, put on a neck area all night or a few hours. Unfortunately, Kata, I don't believe that magnets do work on the vagus nerve. Or really, I think that they're they don't penetrate deep enough if they do. And likely the only kind of really validated science around magnets or magnetism would be transcranial magnetic stimulation or electrified magnetic currents. So you run like pulsed electromagnetic fields can create some like electromagnetic stimulation of the nerve, but just holding a magnet on your neck, it's too passive. The vagus nerve is an active system, a signaling system. So just having a magnet will do almost next to nothing to the vagus nerve. Um, so if you're going to spend the time on something, I would look at something else. If you want to talk, I'd be happy to help you, find something that would be more effective for your time, right? That's all. Shreya, which field of medical doctor can diagnose these issues effectively? Thank you for answering all my questions with so much patience. Of course, anytime. Let's see, which field of medical doctors can diagnose these issues effectively? Okay, a good place to look would be looking at autonomic dysfunction. So heart doctors are actually really good. A heart doctor has to know a lot about the vagus nerve and how it works. So what they do in an autonomic system test is they'll have you do a deep breath and then hold and squeeze like that. And they'll put a heart halter on and they'll detect your heart rate. And if your heart rate drops really fast, that means that your vagus nerve is working better. And if your heart rate does not change at all, that means your vagus nerve isn't working. So when you do a breath hold and squeeze, it activates your vagus nerve. That's why we do it, vagus nerve stimulation. The first video that we recommend here is the breathing, diaphragmatic breathing. And so yeah, a heart doctor would actually be the best place. It's actually really difficult. There aren't really a lot of people who specifically work on the vagus nerve alone. There are people who will work on the corollary small symptoms of vagus nerve dysfunction. So like irritable bowel syndrome is a dysfunction of the vagus nerve cumulatively for years and years and years. Autoimmune disorders, very related to the vagus nerve. So you'll have doctors that will focus on any number of the seeds that fall off the tree of vagus nerve issues, but not a lot that focus on the actual vagus nerve itself. They hardly even mention the vagus nerve. And if you ask them about the vagus nerve, they go, oh yeah, it's the 10th cranial nerve, and they'll give you some corollary facts, or some of them will be like, don't ask me these questions, right? They'll just kind of shut you down. So a neurologist isn't going to be able to help you. A naturopath, probably a better choice. I think a naturopathic doctor would probably be able to put you in the right direction. But even then, you still have to be careful because naturopathic medicine does often rely on a lot of things that are not pharmaceutical grade, but they're more supplemental grade. So, expect if you go to a naturopath that you're going to get, prescribed a lot of medicine through supplementation. And they'll do some allergy testing, and I think that's all good stuff. And so you should, if you haven't gone to a naturopath and you're stuck in the whole, getting prescribed pills and pills and pills, I would be very careful. So it's difficult to say. There's not really doctors that will prescribe you that say you have a vagus nerve issue. Magnets, kata, magnets and help stimulate the vagus nerve, blood circulation, and CoQ10. Kata, you got to ask more of a question. These are just kind of statements and questions. And I did ask magnets. I don't think they help. I don't think they stimulate the vagus nerve, blood circulation, and CoQ10. I don't know what you're asking. Just take a little bit more time to ask the question. Nick, would there be any at-home neck strengthening exercises you would recommend? And if you do not have any apparent neck pain issues, would neck strengthening still help vagus nerve issues? Yes and yes. So I would recommend some strengthening exercises at home. And even if you don't have neck pain issues, I would still recommend strengthening your neck. People don't go, I went to the gym for about 45 minutes this morning. I did a really good lift. It was good. I did legs. My legs are a bit sore from working out. It's not that I have leg pain. It's that I want to be strong, right? So your neck is, of all the if you hurt your arm, you can get a cast. If you hurt your leg, you can get a cast or a brace or something on your ankle. If you get hit in the chest, you're gonna get a big bruise. If you get hit on your back, it's gonna suck and it's gonna kind of make you waddle a little bit. But it's not gonna be that bad. If you break your hip, that's a pretty severe thing. You don't want to break your hip. You can do that. You can strengthen that by having a strong musculature and strong bones. However, if something happens to your neck, it can put you out for years. My injury back in 2016 was a neck injury, and it took about a year and a half off of my life. So, and it was because of a car accident, and I hadn't strengthened my neck. And I wish that I could go back and start strengthening my neck back then to prevent the serious neck injury. Because when your head is flying forward, the only thing that's going to protect you is really your neck. Because my airbag didn't deploy. And even an airbag deploying doesn't just, save the day. It can also cause whiplash injury. So the only thing that will save the day is not on paper, it's no person, it's no magic spells, no acupuncture or chiropractor. It's strengthening your neck proactively so that you don't hurt your neck anymore. Because Nick, I'm gonna imagine you're 20s, 30s, 40s or something like that. I can only see like a little tiny image of you. You got a long life to go, bro. Like there's gonna be opportunities for injuries to happen. Um, the most proactive thing you could do would be to strengthen your neck. Now, some strengthening exercises I do recommend, I think you probably could handle this, is looking into the iron neck. It's a system that goes on your head that you actually rotate your head against resistance and move your body against resistance, with your neck being the thing that needs to strengthen. It works wonders. I recommend it for a lot of people. A lot of people in my program do get help with the iron neck. It's a little bit dangerous if you're just like a gung-ho person and you're like, I don't need any help. I'm just going to do it. Don't do that. Like, seriously, do not just go get the iron neck and just start like, yeah, I'm going to just like wank on my neck. Don't do that. You got to be careful. But that's the best tool that I know of that can help with the neck. Donna, we're going to go here for about 3.5 minutes, and then I'm going to go off in about the 60-minute mark. So I have central sleep apnea where the brain is not telling you to breathe, not obstructive. Would that be treated the same way you explained earlier? Yeah, I definitely believe it. I think it's a nervous system issue rather than um, any kind of a muscle issue. I think that usually the muscles in your head and neck are actually pretty good. So yeah, you would want to do strengthening of your neck. You would want to do singing, humming, gargling, gagging, dive response, breathing, and look at actual stimulation of the vagus nerve with any number of different tools that are available. Cool. Fern, responding. Yep. So Fern says, I have had Lyme disease, mold, and mercury toxicity. Definitely been seeing amazing results with the vagus nerve stimulation and calming my nervous system. I used another protocol to work with drainage, detox, and fighting infections, but getting my body out of the sympathetic mode the majority of the time has been a huge key in helping my immune system recover and my body be able to restore and heal. So yeah, if you're recovering, you need to activate your parasympathetic vagus system. Your vagus nerve is what needs to be on when you're sleeping so that you can recover from the day. Because if you're sick and you're in a sympathetic state, it's going to be really, really tough for your body to feel safe enough to start repairing cells. So yeah, Fern's actually in our full program, and so she's seeing really good results. I can tell you that for sure. So thanks for that, Fern. Yeah, Courtney, you're welcome. Started from a whiplash and fight or flight from trauma. Absolutely. So yeah, even if you do have whiplash, I would still recommend that you go ahead and start strengthening your neck. Really, really important. Debbie asked, what can you do naturally to stimulate your vagus nerve? What can you do naturally? I answered that a lot. There's a whole section on things you can do to stimulate your vagus nerve. Here in the group, breathing, gargling, humming, gagging, dive response, basic exercise, all those things. They're all here in this group. Does it affect your thyroid? Definitely. It runs through your thyroid 4 times, so yes. How does it affect the drainage from your ears, sinuses, and meninges, and spine and skull? So the muscles in the back of your throat, which help drain from your ear, your eustachian tubes, have muscles that are innervated by some of the vagus nerve. So if you have a weak vagus nerve, those muscles just are not going to be getting signal. Have you ever had like an injury to your neck and you like lost feeling to your fingers, or if you ever pinched a nerve, you'll notice that you have a weak grip. So it's the same thing. You'll have a weak neural connection to those muscles that open, that dilate, and contract and constrict. So it would definitely be worthwhile to have you do some of these exercises. Fern, Let's see. My internal tremors and external tremors and jerking have been mostly eliminated since starting my vagus nerve journey. My muscles have been healing at a much deeper level and getting rid of all the emotions and trauma that have been held there for years. My body was so constantly in fight or flight, that my muscles never had a chance to relax. Perfect. So very, very good. So yeah, basically, thanks so much for sharing, Fern. Yeah, we definitely see a lot of this kind of like traumatic energy that can be causing some of these issues, right? So yeah, it's been really good to see Fern's transformation over the last 90 or so. Well, it's been about I think about 50 days now, right, Fern? So you're about a little bit more than halfway through our 90-day program. In repairing your vagus nerve, you're using our stimulator. You're doing the exercises, doing all the right things that you should be doing. And so when she came on the program, it was like she was really in a state of fear and fight or flight. So yeah, just by doing this, it's really helped to calm her down. She's healing, she's repairing, and she's actually able to focus more on her goals that she has for her life rather than focusing on just healing all the time, right? So so yeah, anyway, guys, thanks so much for joining. I really appreciate you. Keep asking questions. I'll go through here and answer them through text. Have a great day, everybody, and I'll talk to you soon.